Yes, we finally got the expert and the outfit. The outfit is so cute! Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I hit expert, and I ran a super meta team. However, let's be honest, meta is kind of stale and boring. And I have all of those battles recorded, and I'm going to put them at the end of this video with commentary for anyone who's interested in watching those battles and probably learning something from them. So when I was doing my expert run, I was actually streaming to a small group of friends, and we thought it would be fun after I hit expert to try something a little bit different. We were going through my Pokemon, and I was like, oh, you know what would be fun? If I tortured my opponents by running Dragonite, Bastiodon, and Carbink. I love that team. It's awful. It's awful to run, and it's awful to face. And then my friends were like, what do you mean that's fun? That sounds terrible. And then I don't know how we got to this conversation, but someone asked if I had LICKITUNG, and I was like, actually, no, not yet. I haven't built mine yet because I don't have enough XLs for the good one. But I was also like, you know, Licky is everywhere. It's not really something interesting. But then I saw that it has access to Hyper Beam, and that sounds pretty interesting to me. We thought it would be so funny and no one would expect it. And let me tell you, the games that resulted are actually so hilarious. Which is why I'm going to be showing them to you guys first. I thought it would be fun to see those matches before we get into the more serious ones where I'm actually trying my hardest to reach expert. And I think a lot of us forget at the end of the day that this is just a game, and games are designed to have fun. It's not supposed to be stressful all the time. So this first match, I was just running the Dragonite double rock, wall, mountains, whatever these are. They're tanky and you can't break them. My opponent had Shadow Gligar on the lead, which of course I had to double shield my Dragonite against, because if there's one thing these two rock types in the back don't like, it's definitely ground types and fighting types. My opponent swapped in Cofagrigus when he realized I was going to farm down his Gligar with my Dragonite, and I bring in my wall and start chucking rocks at him because that's the unfortunate nature of this game. Bastiodon is tanky and sometimes there's not much you can do against it. After that, my opponent brings in Shadow Poliwrath, and props to him for running a unique team. Unfortunately, he takes one Dragon Claw from my Dragonite, and then Carbink is able to take out a fighter with rock throws, completely farm it down. Once people manage to get enough XLs for this thing, it's going to be absolutely everywhere, and it's going to be very difficult and annoying to manage. I hope for our sanity that Niantic does not give this thing an event. Please, please don't. But I know you guys want to see some Hyper Beams, so let's see some beams. Of course, I don't have enough XLs to build my good LICKITUNG, so we have a very in-depth and intellectual conversation. Not really. We're just talking about breakpoints. And I find that I have this rank 106 shiny that reaches certain breakpoints that the rank 3 does not. And also, I have enough XLs for it, so I go ahead and I power that up. And I pair it with Gligar lead, and I put Greedent in the back. So I'm basically running a flyer double normal team. If you're planning on running this team, which I highly doubt, LICKITUNG is going to be your safe swap because Licky can actually deal with Medicham pretty well. And actually with Hyper Beam, if they don't shield, it'll take them out. Ah, that's evil. And of course, the Gligar is there to take care of fighters and anything that the two in the back are going to be weak to. So even Registeel can take care of it pretty well. But on to the first battle, we get a taste of our own medicine when we run into a Shadow Dragonite lead. Unfortunately, I immediately make a swap into Licky, and my opponent farms up a little bit of energy on Dragonite and then swaps into Registeel, which is unfortunately going to wall our Licky completely. And Hyper Beam is not going to be doing much for us here. We do land it. Oh, you know what? I should have a sound effect every time you land a Hyper Beam. Hold up. That's better. My opponent is not going to be able to farm us down completely, which is good for us. For some reason, he goes for Zap Cannon instead of Focus Blast, which is less energy, but that's okay. Now I can bring in Gligar and build up to the dig. Unfortunately, I am going to have to take a Zap Cannon, but we don't get debuffed, and I build up as much energy as I possibly can before throwing dig, because remember, energy maximization is key. My opponent brings back in Dragonite, and I go for the Aerial Ace. He shields. Then I bring in Greedent because I don't want to run the risk of my opponent farming down Gligar, because Shadow Dragonite with energy is really scary. Especially against these normal types, it has access to superpower. Then my opponent brings in LICKITUNG in the back, and it's looking like I am not going to win this. Actually, I think I mess up here. I'm actually not sure who wins CMP, if it's Greedent or LICKITUNG. I do have a Body Slam stored up, and for some reason, here, I don't throw it. I let my opponent throw his next body slam, and that takes me out. The body slam would not have been enough to take out the opposing Lickitung. However, I think with the body slam damage and the wing attack damage, I might have been able to take that match. But anyways, on to the next match. We have Gligar into Deoxys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw Dig, and then I'm going to attempt to catch on 10 on Lickitung. If I catch the Psycho Boost successfully, my opponent will debuff himself, and they will be forced to swap out. I catch the Psycho Boost, and then my opponent brings in Mandibuzz, and oh boy, here comes the fun part. I am going to Hyper Beam this thing. Unfortunately, the Licks are resisted, and they're not doing anything to this Mandibuzz, but, you know, at least we'll land a Hyper Beam. That'll be fun, right? That was kind of underwhelming. That definitely did not feel like it was a big energy move. And unfortunately, we can't reach a second one, so now I'm going to bring Gligar because I don't want to reveal what I have in the back yet. Unfortunately, these foul plays are going to hurt. I'm going to farm up as much energy as I can before my opponent reaches another move and then throw the Aerial Ace. Luckily, it takes him out, and my opponent has Sableye in the back. This is basically a GG's for us. We will easily win this with Greedent. These crunches are going to be doing a ton of damage to Sableye because of Sableye's ghost typing, so it's going to be taking neutral damage from crunch. And all we need to do is reach 2 more, 1 to take out his last shield and 1 to take out the Sableye. Even a return from this point is not going to be enough to take out Greedent, and we easily take this win. GG's to my opponent. Oh wait, no, there's a Deoxys in the back, never mind. Yeah, we just need to reach a crunch against this one too. So I reached that crunch, and we take out the Deoxys as well. At this point, Hyper Beam hasn't been as amazing as I thought it would be, but anyways, moving on to the next match, we have Gligar into Lickitung. I actually have 2 answers to Lickitung in the back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to farm up as much energy as I can on my Gligar, and I'm going to swap in my own Lickitung, hoping to draw out a Medicham. Now here's something I didn't expect. I think my opponent might have seen that I was building up a lot of energy, and I guess they called that I had Hyper Beam and managed to catch it on a Carbink. I was so heartbroken. I really wanted to see the Hyper Beam land on the Lickitung, but it's okay. We managed to reach 2 power-ups on this Carbink anyways, and we take one of their shields. My opponent did farm us down completely, however, so they have a ton of energy loaded. So what I'm going to do is, because I have energy enough for a dig on Gligar, I'm going to swap in, and I'm going to bait with Aerial Ace because I know that my opponent is inclined to shield because they have so much energy and they don't want to waste it. Now, I could have wing attacked the Carbink all the way down. However, I throw the Aerial Ace and my opponent catches it on Lickitung, and then I bring in Greedent, and I'm going to go for these Body Slams to take it out. I'm going to let this Body Slam go. It's not going to do too much damage to Greedent, and for some reason my opponent surrenders here. I still have no idea what he could have had in the back. Unfortunately, we don't get to see what the back Pokemon is. I'm going to predict it's a Sableye. Sableye makes sense if you have 2 Pokemon that are really weak to, like, fighters, so Carbink and Lickitung, so maybe a Sableye. On to the next match, we have a Buzzwole lead, amazing lead for us. Then my opponent brings in Lickitung. I'm just going to chip it, and then I'm going to swap probably into my own Lickitung. Yep. And I'm going to go for this Hyper Beam, and it's going to be enough to KO if it goes unshielded. So I'm farming up to the Hyper Beam. Let's see if it lands. Hopefully it does. Yes, finally a satisfying Hyper Beam. And then, oh no, my opponent quits. Ah, I really wanted to know what he had in the back too. And that was a 4-1. I have one more win I can show you guys from the next set. Unfortunately, the rest of the games didn't go as well. Anyways, we have Gligar on the lead into Deoxys. So again, I'm going to chip and switch. Unfortunately, here my opponent does throw at an interesting timing. They go for a 6 and then they throw Psycho Boost and they swap out. Then they bring in Diggersby. Now, I don't really have a solid answer to Diggersby, so I'm going to stay in with Gligar. The recommended moveset for Diggersby is Scorching Sands and Hyper Beam, so that's what I thought he was running. Here I go ahead and shield thinking it's Hyper Beam. It turns out my opponent is running Fire Punch, and they reach a second one, and they take our final shield, and my opponent still has 2 shields up. Lucky for me, I am able to farm down completely, and I have a ton of energy on Gligar. My opponent brings in Steelix, and I actually should have baited here, instead of going straight for that dig. Now, I know that Greedent can handle Steelix a lot better than Lickitung can. However, what I was trying to do here was I was trying to bait the Deoxys back out so that I could have Deoxys aligned with Lickitung. Unfortunately, my opponent is smart and they decide to stay in with Steelix. They even shield the Power Whip. So no fun Hyper Beams this match. We are going to get knocked out by this Earthquake now. And now I am going to bring in Greedent and go for the crunches. Unfortunately, my opponent is going to be debuffing me. This is going to get really tricky. His Steelix is still half health and his Deoxys is basically full health. So going for these crunches, 2 should be enough to KO. I'm gonna need some energy stored up. I think I'm not gonna be able to get any energy actually for Deoxys. Now my opponent brings in Deoxys and I immediately swap into Gligar because I know I have some energy stored up and I can get to a dig, and that puts him in range of Crunch. I don't know if it's in range of a Body Slam, and all my opponent has to do here is go for a Thunderbolt, but they go for a Cycle Boost and I survive, and then we get to the Crunch. If they had gone for a Thunderbolt, probably they didn't have it actually. I did not see it in this match. But if they had, I would have lost. GG's to my opponent. So the rest of the games were kind of a disaster. We don't really have to watch those. I even faced a really popular streamer and I got absolutely destroyed and I played it so badly. It was an easy win for me. I just played so badly because I got so nervous. But yeah, we don't have to watch that. Yeah, no, there is no way I am going to let you guys see that. Absolutely no. So yeah, we win lead. I kind of don't want to comment on this. This is kind of embarrassing. Okay, yeah, we win lead. My opponent brings in Umbreon. I am going to chip, and I think I'm going to swap into Greedent. Yep, that's what I did. Okay, we're in a good position. Greedent is going to be able to take out Umbreon with the Body Slams, and the Foul Plays are not going to be enough to KO Greedent. So, still in a good position. Really, all I have to worry about is what's in the back, which I still have no idea. Okay, so this next Body Slam should be enough to almost KO him, and I should be in a range where I can farm him down. Hopefully. But he does make a swap back into Trevenant, and I am able to throw this Crunch on Trevenant, and I'm going to immediately swap into LICKITUNG and farm him down all the way. I'm in a really good position. How badly can I mess up? The answer is really, really bad. Really, really, really bad. Okay, so he brings in this thing. I have to take care of this thing. Okay, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I am going to throw at the worst timing ever. He might try to catch on his 1
HP Umbreon in the back.
No.
Two.
I can't believe I did that. I actually can't believe I did that. There's a place where noobs like me belong. I just wanted to throw the Hyper Beam. After that, I made the most questionable plays ever. My brain stopped working, and yeah, I played like a complete noob. But if you've made it this far into the video, you've probably come here to see my expert battles. So let's get into those. Trust me, I play these a lot better than whatever that just was. So I was running Shadow Gligar, Medicham, and Defense Deoxys. I've actually already made a video on this team. I love this team personally. It is slightly weak to Jellicent and Frostlass, however, I've been able to handle them before, and sometimes I like to run Night Slash on Gligar. Okay, first match we have Alolan Sandslash into our Gligar, an awful lead. We swap into Deoxys, our safe swap is Deoxys, and my opponent comes in with Azumarill. So this is actually looking pretty okay for us because Deoxys with Thunderbolt can beat Azumarill. My opponent went ahead and shielded the first Thunderbolt. That means they really want to maintain alignment. So I'm going to mirror that shield just in case my opponent goes ahead and throws the Hydro Pump first. Now I do decide not to shield the second one. I know I can reach another Thunderbolt, and if it is Hydro Pump, my opponent will win switch. However, his Azumarill is in a range where I can come in and farm up as much as I can on Gligar, and if I have one dig loaded up on Gligar, then the A-Slash is pretty toast. But my opponent ends up throwing a Play Rough, and we win that switch. Then we align our Medicham to their A-Slash, and they have Medicham in the back. And with shields down, my Gligar is absolutely going to destroy their Medicham, and they surrender. On to the next match, we have Gligar into Defense Deoxys. My opponent decides to immediately swap out there into Umbreon, and I load up a little bit of energy on Gligar, and then I swap into my Medicham. So my friends who I was streaming to told me that this might have been a mistake because Medicham actually would lose this match with that much of an energy lead on Umbreon. However, because my Medicham is very defense weighted, it's rank 1 with Buddy Boost, it's actually able to survive here and counter down the Umbreon completely. So keep in mind, this is very IV dependent. If you know that your Medicham can't survive that, don't let them get an energy lead. I had so much energy stored on Medicham from farming down that Umbreon. Unfortunately, they bring in Lickitung and it licks us down before we can even throw a move. Now I have to bring in Deoxys against this Lickitung. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build up to a little bit over a Psycho Boost, throw a Psycho Boost, and then swap to clear the debuff into my Gligar and immediately throw a Dig. Now I'm going to invest a shield just so that my Gligar can stay pretty healthy. And I'm okay with the catch on Deoxys because I need to take out Deoxys and Lickitung with this Gligar and my half-health Deoxys in the back. So this next dig should put him pretty low where I can wing attack down and have some energy for my opponent's Lickitung. I wing attack down the Deoxys and I reach another dig. I think this is enough to KO or almost KO, and all I need is like one more counter. Body Slam isn't enough to take out our Deoxys, and we take that win. GG's to my opponent, and well played. On to the next match, we have another Sandslash lead, another terrible lead for us. Again, immediately swapping into Deoxys, and my opponent brings out a Azumarill. So this might be similar to the team we saw earlier. Again, my opponent is going to shield the Thunderbolts here because they probably want to maintain alignment. I'm gonna mirror the first shield, but by now I should recognize that everyone's always baiting on the first one. So going for this Thunderbolt, I'm expecting maybe another shield, but my opponent no shields that. So for the next move my opponent is gonna throw, I'm also going to no shield. But however, it ends up being a Hydro Pump. We do manage to reach one more Thunderbolt. I said that in the previous game that was like this, that I know I can reach one more Thunderbolt. And that grabs his last shield. And this is perfect. We need his shields out of the way if we want Gligar to be able to one-shot the Alolan Sandslash. Now, of course, I'm going to be able to invest a shield here perfectly fine. I'm going to farm up as much as I can, and then I'm going to throw Aerial Ace before my opponent can reach another move. I think I could have farmed down completely here. I messed up. Yeah, this was definitely a mistake. And then I make another mistake, and I throw the dig immediately, and I let my opponent catch it on a Pelipper. Now I'm going to farm up some energy and I'm going to attempt to catch a Weather Ball. It wasn't the smoothest catch, but we managed to get the Weather Ball. And my plan here is to get him low enough with the Ice Punch where I can wing attack down with Gligar, and then hopefully I should have enough energy to reach one dig on Alolan Sandslash. So it works out. My opponent sends the Hurricane. They use up all their energy. We manage to get one wing attack in, and that's enough to get us one dig, and we take out the Alolan Sandslash. GG's to my opponent. But moving on, we get a Sableye lead, so of course I have to stay in this because my backline is very, very weak to this. The way I like to play it is I like to double shield my Gligar, and if I can land one Aerial Ace, I should be able to wing attack down completely after this. I know the next Aerial Ace is going to take his one of his shields, but he's not going to be able to reach a third Foul Play, so I can safely invest this shield to win lead. Of course, we are shields down and my opponent has one shield left. However, I have so much energy on Gligar, and my opponent brings in Carbink, so I'm going to go ahead and throw this dig. It does about 50%, well, not 50%, more like 40% of Carbink's health. And I don't want him to farm me because I have shields down and Moonblast on Medicham is pretty devastating. So I swap out into my Medicham and my opponent immediately swaps out into their own Medi. So I'm just going to go for these Psychics. The first one goes unshielded. My opponent still has that one shield left. And then now I'm just going for these Ice Punches. My opponent is pretty low where actually I would be really happy farming him down with Defense Deoxys. We do have to take an Ice Punch, but that's okay. It's not going to do too much damage. Now I have a lot of energy that I can throw on this Carbink. I'm going to go for these Thunderbolts because I do not want to debuff my counter damage yet. I try to go for a catch on Gligar, but it's unsuccessful. My opponent ends up throwing anyways. I had a little bit of energy, so that makes sense. And now I am able to counter down the Carbink. GG's to my opponent. Well played. I believe this 4-1 was the second set I played that day. I actually did start off with a 4-1 as well. Like I said, we had started off at 2-6-5-9. So in this set, we are 2-7, I think that was 0-4, and now we reached 2-7-4-1. So all I need is 3 more wins to reach that expert. On to the first match of the final set, we have a very nice lead of Registeel into Gligar. My entire team actually deals with Registeel pretty well. My opponent, for some reason, swaps in Medicham into Gligar, so that's a interesting move. I mean, I get it because it has Ice Punch, but I managed to catch the Ice Punch on Deoxys, and I think I am going to go for a full farm down here. Defense Deoxys is such a monster, he can easily take these Ice Punches, and yes, I am going for that full farm down. Whatever they bring in next, which I'm assuming is Registeel, is going to have to take all this energy, and Registeel cannot farm me down here. So I'm able to get 2 Thunderbolts off on Registeel. Let's see if my opponent decides to stay in. And nope, my opponent swaps out into Charizard. This is going to get a little bit tricky because we have Medicham left in the back, and we have this Gligar. My opponent only loads up to the Dragon Claw, so I know I can take that, but now I am in farm down range for him. I do manage to reach 2 Aerial Aces, however, and take both his shields. So this is going to be very important for me. All I need to do is come in with Medicham and get to an Ice Punch, and that should be enough to KO this Charizard. So I double shield my Medicham because, you know, it's Shadowed Charizard. Of course I'm going to double shield. Lucky for us, the second one is the Blast Burn. That means he threw away most of his energy. I think he might be energy dry. And then he brings in Registeel. I'm okay with taking a Zap Cannon, and I can actually farm him down all the way and have an Ice Punch loaded for Charizard. My opponent surrenders there. GG's to my opponent. But moving on to the next match, we see another Defense Deoxys lead. It's funny how most of the leads we're seeing with this team are similar. By now I have it memorized. I've seen this a lot. My opponent throws a Psycho Boost and then swaps into Lickitung. I have seen this many times. However, this time it's not Lickitung. Whoops. It's Mandibuzz, which is even trickier for my backline, so I kind of have to stay in here. I'm going to do as much damage as I can with these Aerial Aces, and I do plan on catching one of the Foul Plays, or sorry, Dark Pulses in this case, with my Medicham, and Aerial Ace from Mandibuzz actually doesn't do too much to my Medicham. I reach the Ice Punch, and if it goes unshielded, it should be enough to KO, and he survives with 1 HP and swaps out. Now he brings in Nidoqueen. I am able to reach the Ice Punch, which is good. I expect this to take his first shield, and it does. Now, what I have in the back, both can deal with Nidoqueen pretty well. I'm going to bring in Gligar, of course, because Gligar is going to be resisting all of the poison moves from Nidoqueen. It's also going to be resisting Earth Power. So I'm going to go straight for Aerial Ace with Gligar. I know I can take this next Poison Fang and not die. This Aerial Ace should take his final shield. However, I'm in a tricky situation where my opponent still has a full health Deoxys in the back, and I'm going to get debuffed here. And my opponent is going to do a lot of damage with Nidoqueen to my Deoxys. And even if I go for the Thunderbolt here so that I don't debuff my attack, I'm still not going to be able to win this. So I top left. GG's to my opponent. Well played and nice team. On to the next battle, we have an okay lead, but remember, because Gligar is part ground type, it is going to be taking neutral from grass type moves. My opponent makes an immediate swap into Dugong, and I bring in Medicham. Now this can get a little bit tricky if my opponent decides to invest some shields. I'm going to go for the Psychic, and if this gets shielded, I might have to shield the next Icy Wind. It gets one of his shields, and I decide to mirror the shield here, because I have actually seen scenarios where Dugong can actually win versus Medicham. I'm gonna go for this next Psychic, and luckily my opponent lets it go and it takes him out. Now, my opponent attempted to catch a Psychic on Azumarill, Lucky for us, we didn't throw it. I immediately swap into Deoxys because Deoxys is my Azumarill counter. We are in a really good place, and it looks like this is going to be a positive match for us. I do let the Hydro Pump go, but it's okay because I know I can reach the next Thunderbolt just before Azumarill can reach a move. I think we CMP tied there, actually. But my opponent brings back in Venusaur, and they CMP me on the Psycho Boost because they know that they can't take that Psycho Boost and they don't want to use their last shield, especially since I have Gligar in the back and Aerial Ace is going to be enough to take out Venusaur. Oh, and I also do this really risky play here where I don't shield because one of my friends told me that I survive and somehow they end up being right, but it was very, very risky. I actually did not have to let that go. I had energy on Medicham, so I could have taken the shield and then swapped immediately into Medicham and thrown, but that was more fun. On to the next match, we have a Lantern lead, and oh, this is a good match. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and shield the Surfs. Lantern can be a little bit tricky for this team if I can't land a dig from Gligar on Lantern. Unfortunately, Lantern outpaces us to Surf, and I find it a little bit risky baiting with Aerial Ace. Sometimes they don't shield, so I like to go for Dig right away. My opponent attempts to catch Dig on their own Gligar, and I expected this, so I was a little bit patient, and I threw the Aerial Ace against Gligar. Now, Gligar is another one of those Pokemon that's a little bit tricky for my backline, so I go ahead and do as much damage as I can with Aerial Ace. Enough so that I can bring Deoxys in and basically counter down, and I'm okay with taking the energy from Gligar onto Deoxys. I wouldn't want to bring in Medicham because 2 Aerial Aces are enough to KO, so Deoxys was a great damage sponge there. Of course, my opponent brings back in Lantern, and I have a ton of energy. I managed to land a Thunderbolt on Lantern, however, I also make it to a Psycho Boost, but my opponent catches that Psycho Boost on a Registeel. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in Medicham, I'm going to farm up a little bit, and then I'm going to go for a catch on Gligar. And I am going to be in a range where I can still reach a dig, and this should take my opponent's final shield. Now I'm going to have to go for a full farm down with Medi because I need energy for the Lantern in the back. I need to have a Psychic loaded. Unfortunately, we have to take the Zap Cannon. Let's hope for no debuff. We don't get a debuff, and my opponent tries to snipe, but I go straight for that Psychic. We take out the Lantern, and now I just have to reach an Ice Punch before my opponent can reach a move. It looks like we CMP tie there, and I am able to take them out with the Ice Punch, and that was the 3rd win we needed in that set to reach Experts. Now, I do have one more game left in the set. However, it is a loss, and it's not that interesting, so I'm not gonna review it because this video is already super, super long. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far into the video, let me know in the comments below, and I appreciate you. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. But I'm mostly expecting people to only watch like the first half of the video. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, maybe leaving a like, it helps me out a ton. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!